Good morning. I'm Josetta Yvonne, your book bae, coming on for a quick book chat today. I hope this video finds you well. So I just wrapped up the book Paradise by Toni Morrison last night, actually. I was in the mood for something different, and nothing on my TBR or the new books I had purchased I was really in the mood for, and boy did I get something different. I bought this book during the shutdown and never got a chance to read it, and it is a very intricate story the way she weaves it together. It is not told in chronological order, so you really have to be patient as the story unfolds and take your time with it. I put another book down because I needed to give this book all of my focus, and I didn't want to get distracted with the other one. Now, I don't know if I said this or not, but it didn't go in chronological order. She kind of goes back and forth from past, present to future in the book. And each chapter bears an individual's name, and that chapter introduces more characters that involves that individual. I actually thought Ruby, when I first started reading the book, was a person, but Ruby was the name of the actual town that the story evolved around. This book actually starts from back in the day where the slaves had been recently emancipated. They had been freed, and they were going around looking for towns to be a part of, and they eventually decided to create their own. I would call them the Divine Nine, basically, because it was, I think, 9 different men and families that decided to do this. And the interesting part is, of course, we know at that time we were not welcomed with the whites, but they soon discovered that they were not welcomed with the blacks always either, especially certain blacks that deemed themselves, I don't know if they would call themselves elite, because they did help them to a point, but they did not want them to stay in their town. So they had to create their own town. But in the meantime, they talked about how they visited Tulsa and some of the other towns that were black and created. And so after they kind of visited each one, they went and created their own community. But the very thing they disliked about being judged and not being embraced is the very thing they began to do to others in their own small town. This book reminds me, and it's so interesting, because even thinking about it now, I didn't read the synopsis before I went into this book, but I think the town was a town of 300. So everybody knows everybody. Everybody's married to somebody that somebody knows, and sometimes you're kin to people on both the wife's side and the husband's side. But there was no true main character. And I think that can make it hard to follow, because it's not focused on one particular person, but on several people and how their life is unfolding. One starts off, her name was Mavis, and I remember she came in and it just talks about what happened with her and her children and how her marriage was before she came to this convent. Now, there was a convent that basically housed, I'm trying to think of the name of that book. I wouldn't say the throwaways, but it was a convent that if you were a woman and you were not following the status quo of getting married, having kids, white picket fence, whatever, if you were someone that was independent, self-sufficient, had been maybe put out from home or ran away, this was a safe haven for women that would have probably been on the street. But the crazy part is that this convent was not directly in Ruby. It was outside of Ruby. But the people of Ruby, or I'll say the men of Ruby, judged these women harshly because they were not living the way they felt they should be living. But what's also interesting is that although they were passing these judgments, some of them were secretly going out there to that convent and picking some of those ladies up to have a good time, yet still judging them. Anyway, like I said, the story unfolds. It really is a great story. You have to take your time with it. I will let you know that if you're not taking your time with it and being patient with it, you can easily get confused because of all the different characters that's being thrown into it. So sometimes you have to go back and reread something, or make because she's not giving you all the details all at once, and so you'll have to go back and say, well, wait a minute, did so and so just did, and then you're like, oh, that's connected to this. So there are many times when I had to go back and look at something else, a previous chapter, because how that person showed up in this person's story, they may have showed up differently in this other person's story. And yeah, interesting enough, the women of Ruby, though, they were compassionate for the most part for the other women. They didn't have, now they had their judgments, but they didn't have any ill will to people living their lives how they want to. And it just kind of made me think about, like, today, like, in society, how it correlates with, some things haven't changed. There are men still trying to control women, especially now with, like, certain rights being rolled back. And we hear some of the rhetoric around, what people believe women should be doing. And we've seen the job losses of especially Black women. We've seen, like, over 300,000 they've shown Black women out of the workforce that's working for the federal government that were let go, that I'm sure were providers, and I'm sure some of them probably were married, but for those that weren't, and they take care of their family and their there's just a tax on women, period, if we're being honest. But anyway, as I digress, it was a really great book. Like I said, these freedmen created their own town because they had to. Did the story end? I will say the story ended on a good note, because what is the saying in the Bible? What they meant for evil worked out for my good. And I think that's what transpired here. What was meant for evil turned out for some of these women's good. Not everyone's, but some of theirs. Anyway, if you're looking for a book to read that is detailed, very intricate, she does a lot of building with telling people's backgrounds, then pick this up. But I'm not gonna lie to you, it's not going to be an easy read. It deals with some tough subjects, one being SA, another being child abuse, it seems like it. Also, there was like statutory rape, what I would consider. And the topic, or the name of the book, Paradise, was a little misleading, because it definitely, when I started reading, I was like, this isn't paradise. I wouldn't describe this as paradise. But the crazy thing is, paradise was a town. And the ironic thing is that the other day I was watching Netflix. It was just a commercial of something that's coming out. I can't remember the name of the show. It's a movie that they just introduced. And they were talking about the brothel in paradise. And this young woman, I guess this man falls in love with her and wants to take her out to paradise. Oh, I think it was called Redeeming Love. I read that book. It's a book, so I got to go back and look and see if that's based on the book I read when I was younger. But anyway, yes. Check the book out. I think it's an excellent read if you're in a mood for an intricate story that is not necessarily about true paradise that we would think of it to be. Because when we think of paradise, I don't think of what this book is discussing. But I do think Toni Morrison did her big one. I read some other people's reviews, and some people did not like it because they felt like it was kind of all over the place. I could see how they could come back, could interpret it to be that way. But I've always, from my youth until now, Toni has always been known as a prolific writer, but also a writer that throws things in there, like she weaves it. She doesn't give it to you all at once. It's as if you have to keep reading. She has a foundation, but then she starts to throw in little nuggets here and there. So you have to be ready and open for that. So I would say, if that's not your thing, along with some of the triggers I named, then this may not be the book for you. I thoroughly enjoyed it once I started, the book started moving along. But I'm not gonna lie to you, it took a while for it to like jump, and what I mean, like pop off, because she was giving you a lot of details and background information about each individual, and about the town and how it came to be, and about the other black towns, and how some of those black towns, they went to go see them again, they didn't even exist anymore, kind of like Tulsa, because it had been burned down. And so even that was interesting, to see something thriving and people doing so well economically, and then it to be all taken away just like that because of a story somebody tells, or just because someone just has so much hatred for you and you're minding your own business. Like, what? But anyway, yes, this is a story that I think that you can appreciate, though, once you get into it. But it is going to take some time. You are going to have to focus. You are going to have to, be patient with it as it unfolds. If you're not a patient person, if that's not your thing, I'm not going to lie, it may not be your book. Again, Paradise by Toni Morrison. Thoroughly enjoyed it. It is a story that you do have to be patient with. Anyway, have an amazing day. Take care. I wish you nothing but blessings and abundance, inner peace, positivity, and empowerment. And I will see you again on the next one. Have an amazing Monday. Bye.